Welcome to Silver Bar Stacker, folks. I hope everybody's doing well and enjoying their Sunday. That's right, folks. Today is Sunday, and we've got a special and fun one for you today. We've got actually a small unboxing, and this is going to be a fun boxing because it's going to be a little bit of a mystery for actually all of us. This is kind of one of those purchases that I like to call a random design type of purchase, where you don't exactly know what you're going to get, right? A lot of stores have those random design type of listings where you can kind of, for a little bit of a better value sometimes, you can kind of roll the dice and get something that you're not really sure what it's going to be. And so that's exactly what this is here in front of us. This is going to be actually a box of 4 1-ounce bars. And these bars, what's special about them is not just that they're actually Engelhard bars, but what actually makes these 4 1-ounce bars special is that they're actually Engelhard bars that are in the original wrapping. And so that's what we do know about these bars, but we don't know about the bars is what sort of design the bars are going to be, right? And so when it comes down to Engelhard bars, at least of the 1-ounce variety, the original wrapping actually varies. Okay, so there's original factory seals, and so this is something that kind of collectors, they sort of try to seek out a lot of the time, because it's another layer of value, really, is what it comes down to. Here you have a little bit of a chip here in the original factory seal, but it is preserved in the seal nonetheless. Sometimes you see when there's a little bit of compromisation in the original factory seal, what you start to see is you start to see maybe a little bit of toning starting to happen around where that air penetration is. But in this case, this bar is still in quite good condition, I would say. And so this is an example of an Engelhard bar, for example, like what we do have inside this box, that is still in the original factory seal. Now, these Canadian maple leaf varieties are a little bit more scarce than your typical commercial 1-ounce bar. And by commercial 1-ounce bar, I'm talking about your typical sort of E-logo bars or Eagle bars. So these types of bars are a little bit more common, and so they have a little bit more of like a lollipop wrapper. Like this almost kind of reminds me of like hard candy, lollipops, that sort of wrapper. So it's kind of like the crinkly wrapper. It's a little bit, tends to rip a little bit more easily than these do, and this is a little bit more firm, whereas this is a little bit more flimsy. And so this kind of reminds me of the lollipop wrappers, and in fact sometimes these are actually called the lollipop wrappers. So this is kind of the more common commercial bars that you'll see, and this is the original factory seal that you'll see with the original commercial bars. In this case, you kind of got like a strip of some originals that are kind of put together. And keep in mind that just an interesting thing to note is that these serial numbers are not always sequential. They kind of just, I think, mass produce these and put them in these lollipop wrappers. But now a lot of times people kind of seek out that original wrapping. Here we got some prospector rounds in the original wrapping as well. So this is an example of the commercial bars. This is an example of kind of the more high quality but still pretty brittle and still prone to cracking original seal on some of the Engelhard bars. And so I'm not expecting that we'll kind of get this kind of an original factory seal in this box, even though we did pay quite a premium for these. These actually came from one of our trusted suppliers, which is Apmex. Now, it's been a while since we've made a purchase from Apmex, and I would say that there's more reasons why it's been quite a while since we've made purchases from them, and I'll get into some fun stories. Well, I wouldn't say fun stories, but some interesting stories about some recent interactions that we have with them. But this came from Apmex nonetheless, and so the pricing was a little bit high. I wouldn't definitely wouldn't say necessarily that we averaged down with this purchase, but since they do sometimes have things available that other bullion stores do not, we do actually supply a lot of our products from them from time to time, when the timing is correct and when the pricing is reasonable, at least. Here's another example of an original factory seal for an Engelhard. This is the same sort of wrapper, but it's got this red seal, this red Engelhard seal. So again, this is kind of a more scarce version of the maple leaf, so I wouldn't expect to get that sort of an original factory seal inside this box. But anyways, let's go ahead and break it open into this. Maybe another thing I should show you is kind of what some of the 10 ounce and 5 ounce bars sort of look like in the original factory seal. Now take a look at this. This is kind of a similar wrapping. It's kind of like a brittle but thicker plastic, similar to the one that you saw in that maple leaf bar. So this is generally the type of plastic wrapping that you'll see on the 5 ounce and the 10 ounce bars. They don't use the lollipop wrapper, that very flimsy stuff, for these heavier bars. So that's just something to note. A lot of times not a lot of times, but occasionally, I've seen it before. Occasionally I've seen where you have a seller just trying to put something inside like a vacuum seal wrapper or something and say that that's the original factory seal, question mark. They're trying to make a fool of you. You need to be informed about what the original factory seal actually looks like, and these are kind of the examples, at least if you're going for the Engelhard bars. So now let's go ahead and see what we were graced with from the people at Apmex. Let's just go ahead and see what we got. And it's exactly what I expected to see, and we have some extremely common Engelhard commercial bars, and these actually, I can tell you right off the bat, they are all extremely common bars. All of these are E-logo bars, but not only are they E-logo bars, there's 4 different types of common E-logo bars. This is the most common of them all. This right here is a 1.15 million minted bar, and it is the most common Engelhard bar in existence. And so we did pay a hefty premium for these bars, and actually we ended up paying more than we originally had planned, and I'll tell you why that's the case once I get into some stories here. But this is what we have here, folks. Nothing special, at least in my eyes. There is nothing special about these bars. I do not even see, unfortunately, any sequential cereals. What a shame. We got some close cereals, but we do not have any sequential cereals. And so these, unfortunately, will just be added directly to the pile of bars that we have. Unfortunately, they are not going to be put together in any certain way because they are not special. They are not sequential. There's nothing extremely special about them other than the fact that they are still in the original factory seal. So that was anticlimactic, very anticlimactic, and so let's get into why these bars that we actually got ended up being more expensive than originally planned. Now, I had actually purchased these bars as part of a topping off of an order that I purchased as part of the same order. And so what I had actually purchased were some lower vintage rounds, and I had actually purchased nearly 50 ounces of 1 ounce vintage rounds from Apmex. And so what had ended up happening was that I was just shy. Here in California, if you don't spend $2,000, actually it is the limit now, if you don't spend $2,000, you have to pay tax. And so in an effort to avoid having to pay tax on the purchase, I just topped off my order with Engelhard bars that were in the original wrapping. I figured, hey, these are harder to come by. I mean, they're pretty common to come by, but hey, I'll roll the dice. Maybe I'll get something nice that I kind of was looking for. And so I topped off my order with those extra 4 bars in an effort to, cross the $2,000 mark and avoid taxes. Well, what ended up happening is that 50 ounces of vintage rounds that I had purchased, I get a message after they shipped me these bars already. Then I get a message saying, hey, there's some sort of a mix-up, okay? A small mix-up has happened. I get an email from them. I'll tell you exactly what they said. Thank you for your recent order. Unfortunately, there has been an inventory discrepancy. And instead of the, nearly 50 rounds that you ordered, we only have 9 of them. Now, these aren't just any rounds. It's not like they just miscounted 1 or 2 prospector rounds or something like that. These are like, how do you misplace more than 30 rounds, right? That's ridiculous. So they tell me, hey, we misplaced 30, more than 30 of these rounds, so we're only going to be able to sell you send you a few of what you ordered. Okay, so your 2 options here are we're going to refund you your money, for the stuff that we can't send you, or we're going to give you some crap that you don't want, which are some other like not as rare and not as low mintage products, and not at all really what I wanted. Is by a different refiner. It was completely different, and they're like, oh, we could substitute it with this crappy thing, or we can give you a refund. And so I was thinking, okay, maybe there's something else that I might want to purchase. There's nothing that I wanted to purchase. Okay, so I was trying to see maybe there might be something else they might be able to substitute it with. There's nothing I wanted. So I was like, okay, I guess I'll take the refund. Well, what ended up happening is because I took the refund, well, then my order limit fell below the $2,000 mark. And because of that, I ended up having to pay an extra $55.57 in taxes. Because the entire order that I purchased was, taxed after that point. I had made this original 4-bar purchase because I wanted to avoid, taxes, topped it off, bought these overpriced bars, and then I basically got baited and switched and told they're like, hey, we don't have any of these rounds that you ordered. Oh, sorry, we already shipped the other stuff. And I know if I call, give them a call back and tell them, hey, what the heck, they'll just be like, oh yeah, well, we can take your crappy bars back with the market, based off of the market change and blah, 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 blah. I'm not interested in going through that hassle for 4 bars. I just feel that was totally uncalled for. How can your in-stocks honestly be that off? For such a large company, I just find that to be crazy. Okay? So anyways, I found that to be crazy. At the same time, I was thinking to myself, because as you can see, I do make fairly large orders. It's not uncommon for me or people that are living in my state to make orders this large, and I'm sure there's many people outside of the state just that are watching here. Many subscribers of this channel probably make larger purchases, much larger purchases than I do, okay, and much more regularly than I do perhaps. And on Apmex, I've got the VIP status because we make fairly large orders, fairly frequent orders, and so I'm sure a lot of you who are watching here are also those that VIP tier. Now, I'm sure you guys know that and understand that we don't get many benefits for being in that VIP tier, right? They'll give us some heads up about some of the sales and like whoop-de-doo, right? It's not really a huge benefit for the amount of money we actually spend there. At least some of these other companies will, send you a little gift. If you've spent a lot of money with them, they'll send you a little 1-ounce round or something, at the end of the year to show their appreciation. But, as far as like discounts go and stuff, they're very, very not giving, I would say, when it comes to Apmex. So I was thinking to myself, I was like, okay, well, I'm actually buying not just for myself, I'm buying for the store. And, Apmex is one of my suppliers. And so I thought to myself, let me just go see about how we can get deals on some wholesale stuff. They dropped the ball here, but in the future, I am going to want to be purchasing large orders. I'm wondering, what about bulk discounts for businesses and stuff like that? So they do actually have a wholesale program, and there's an application process, and they actually gave me the application link and all that good stuff. And actually, before they did that, I spoke to a gentleman who was kind of there, who they connected me to, because I kind of had some questions myself, just to learn a little bit about the wholesale side of things for Apmex and how it worked. And so when I spoke to them, they basically started asking some questions. They wanted to just get to know a little bit about the business and who they're going to be potentially partnering with. And I was asking questions about what the application process was, and mainly what the benefits were going to be for having a wholesale account. And so I was trying to get a little bit of details on that before I even went through this process to see if it was something that I'd be even really interested in. And so that's kind of what we did. We went ahead and started speaking about that, and the guy from Apmex started asking me some questions like, oh, tell me a little bit about your business. And so I told him, I said, we're into a little bit of the vintage stuff. We kind of specialize in the vintage stuff. And so we run a store just kind of similar to Apmex in that, it's kind of an online storefront. We've got our LLC documentation and everything. And we've, been in business for a couple of years. And generally we do a lot of sales on our website, our actual store. We also sell on other platforms and through other means. But we do very little, in-person transactions. We don't have actual physical storefront. And I told them a little bit about kind of the sales that we've done over the past year and a little bit of, just general facts. He said, okay, cool. And he's like, okay, so he's just like, okay, so you guys actually run an actual store? I'm like, yeah. And he's like, and so do you guys have an actual storefront? I'm like, no. I was like, yeah, like I said, we're just like online retail. We do everything, but we have a more specialization in vintage silver, and so that's kind of how we kind of maybe differ from Apmex. But other than that, we're just like Apmex. So I basically told them, like, I don't know what you're trying to get at. No, we do not have a storefront, but we are a legitimate business who, is buying and selling bullion products, specifically vintage bullion products. So we're literally just like you guys, except we have a more deeper specialization. And it just so happens you sometimes carry some of the products that we sell, so sometimes we supply our products from you. He says, okay, cool. And so then I started saying my piece. I was like, yeah, so, I'm just trying to get an idea of what the application process is like, and more importantly, what are the benefits? Is there a discount on the products? If you purchase in bulk, how does it work exactly? And so I said, oh, yeah, we've got like a separate site, and on that separate site, different items will have different discounts and stuff like that. And so I was like, okay, cool. And so I was like, yeah, so I'm just trying to get an idea of like how much of a discount that you might get and how that kind of works. And so it's like, okay, cool, yeah. So I was like, so let me use the Engelhard prospectors as an example. I'm like, this is something that we are constantly selling on our store. It's one of our staple products, and so we're always looking to kind of restock on Engelhard prospectors, and we like to generally purchase things in bulk. We don't like to buy one or two prospectors at a time. We like to buy monster boxes of prospectors at a time if possible. And sometimes we're very specific about particular years, like there might be a particular year that we're low on, and so we might want to restock on that particular year. So basically what I'm getting at is, like, let's say for example, right, you don't have to give me specific numbers, but let's say for example, if I was a wholesale customer, right, and I'm looking for a particular year on the prospectors. Now, if I look on your normal retail account, not your wholesale website, if I look on your normal website, well, you're selling prospector rounds dated at around $40 each, okay? Which, I'm not going to say it's a low price, but it's not a terribly high price. It's around the market value. I think they're pricing their prospectors very fairly. I think some of their other more common vintage products, they price obscenely, right? So I think the pricing is kind of all over the place, but I would say that the prospector pricing is fair, right? I would say it's fair. It's comparable to what we pay, and obviously, we're a smaller store, so we're not able to get the same kind of discounts sometimes as Apmex is. So sometimes, our prospector price might even be higher right now than Apmex. But regardless, we're supplying from Apmex, so sometimes we will have to have a little bit of a markup compared to them. And when it comes down to the wholesale discount, there's not much of one, right? Because the way he explained how this scenario would work, where you got a dated prospector that's maybe around $40, you got a random year prospector, which is maybe around $35, you got a $5 variance between random year and dated. That means that they can actually afford to probably let go of some of those dated, specifically dated rounds, especially if they're giving them away in bulk. They could probably let them go at the random year price, right? So that's what I was kind of asking him. I was like, hey, if I was looking for a specific date, do you think you could give those to me at just the random year price? Or would I be able to get them a little bit lower than that? That was kind of my question. I was assuming that they would at least be able to give them to me at the random year price. And he's like, well, that's not exactly how it works for our wholesale customers. I'm like, okay, well, how does it work then? He's like, well, yeah, generally you can get maybe more of a discount for some of our more generic products, like, for example, like our own branded cast board bars. We could give you a slight discount on those if you're buying them in bulk. But he said generally for vintage products it works a little bit different. I'm like, oh, okay, how does it work for that? Because that's kind of the only stuff I'm going to be buying from you. And so the way he explains this to me is the most nonsensical thing I've ever heard. Like, I just didn't quite understand what it was that I was listening to. So what he basically said was this: well, yeah, we wouldn't be able to give you the random design price on those dated prospectors. What we would actually be able to do is, that $40 a ounce or whatever, $40 a round, that price is if you're buying like whatever it is, like a monster box of prospectors or something like that, which they don't even have in stock, by the way. They only had like a couple hundred of these dated prospectors that I was looking for. So I couldn't even buy a monster box if I wanted to. But they were basically like, yeah, that monster box price of $40, we'll let you get that price even if you want to just buy 1 or 2 rounds or like 10 rounds or something like that. I'm like, so that's the benefit of the wholesale account. The benefit of the wholesale account is that instead of buying wholesale, you will allow me to buy not wholesale at the wholesale prices. So as the wholesale customer, I'm benefiting because I'm getting no discount whatsoever. I'm getting a $0 discount, and you're incentivizing me to purchase less because I'm your wholesale customer. That makes no sense. And furthermore, when I was provided with the application link, they're asking not just for my business information, but for references, which is fine, I guess, if you really need references. But the main issue is they're asking for my social security number. What do you need that for? You got my business information, and regardless, I don't really see what the benefit of having a wholesale account is, and that's the bottom line. I really don't understand how you would benefit as a wholesale customer if you're literally getting provided with a $0 discount. That's not a wholesale benefit in my eyes, right? So to me, I was just like, I don't think it's really makes sense for me to sign up for this, so I'm not going to. So I just found that to be a lot of interesting interactions. It's like, how the heck can your in-stocks be off by 30? How can you have 75% less of what you thought you had? That's crazy. That's absolutely crazy. And you don't realize it until almost a week later. That's crazy to me. We would realize it much sooner than that, and we probably would never have our in-stocks be off that much. We pay attention to detail a little bit better than that person. That's just how we operate there. So anyways, hope you enjoyed this unclimactic unboxing. Cheers!